After the war at the labyrinth, which lingers for so many decades, the war ends, and a part of the team is victorious. The part which is victorious remains on the top of the ground while several masters who lost the war releases their prisoners of war after the war. Among these prisoners who are released are babies who were born in the prison and whose mothers were dead. These babies are raised with monsters' milk. On that fateful day, when the prisoners are coming out of the labyrinth, they see another child coming out. The children born in the labyrinth are too strong to be called humans, and they need otherworldly power. They see the young child coming out, and they wonder if he was born in the labyrinth as it takes him so long to come out compared to the others. They watch as the child comes out, and they try to hold him to encourage him that it is fine in that place. They see that the boy doesn't have a grip on his powers yet, and he can't control it. They name him a dungeon baby, and several years later, he grows up to be a fine man, and he follows a team of explorers to the dungeon as their guide. Their mission to the dungeon is to video it, and they assume they will find some treasures in the dungeon. But he insists he won't allow them to enter the dungeon as it is not worth it. He claims several people have explored the dungeon without seeing anything, so if they also explore it, nothing will be different. While the others believe that it can be their chance to become billionaires, and since they intend to investigate the dungeon, they think that it is at least one investigation that made dungeon babies popular. One of them says that she has done her research and she has found out that dungeons babies like the dungeon. Contrary to their belief, the only dungeon baby among them hates the dungeon. They say that he is the only dungeon baby who hates going to the labyrinth and also the only one whose level of skills hasn't been revealed. They wonder if he is that weak, and one of them says she has hired guards just in case they meet any monster. The dungeon baby goes to meet them. He tells them it's about time and they should leave, but they tell him they haven't even spent about 10 minutes there. He warns them they don't have time to waste and must get to the second floor before taking a break. He tells them to warn the guards that irrespective of the monster they meet in the dungeon, they shouldn't shoot first. He goes to address the soldiers, who laugh at him, telling him that he worries too much and should just take care of them. He concludes that they don't understand what he is saying. He is worried that the moment that they are using to talk and make those jests, they may be someone in the dungeon who is dying. He says that's a normal thing in the Geyser labyrinth. Suddenly, his colleague screams, and they see a monster, but he acknowledges that it is a monster that is very popular in that area. He says the monster is injured, and they should just leave it on its own, and they should continue their journey so the blood of the monster won't get closer to them. Unfortunately, the guards insist they will work for their money. They bring out their guns and go to shoot the monster despite how much he begs them otherwise. They kill the monster, and they jubilate that the monsters in the jungle are just like other humans on Earth, and it's nothing to be worried about. They brag that they will kill anything they see on their way. They try to contemplate if they should just pack up all the parts of the monster they had just killed or some parts. As they talk, they hear loud footsteps, and they wonder who is coming. The dungeon baby explains to them that the predators have heard their gunshots, and they are coming. Reading from the footstep voice, he tells them that the predators are still far, and if they make a run for it immediately, they can still survive. The guards refuse. They believe that if they find a way to put the monsters in a tight corner as they did with the last one, they will kill it. They brag that the last one they killed died after a few gunshots, and it is worth millions, so if they use the same level of skill, they will earn more. The dungeon baby looks at them angrily, wondering if the money they will earn is worth more to them than their lives. They say that if they keep fighting, they will double their price, and since the dungeon baby has figured out their goal, he tells them that since the guards have guns to fight, they can remain there and wait for the predators while he who doesn't have weapon can just continue. The guards tell him that's their mission and he can go, but they say they won't give him a share of what they earn from the monsters as whatever they earn is their pay. He calls his colleagues, asking them to follow him, but one of them insists that she hasn't taken the videos she wants to take and her videos are so important. He forges ahead and his colleagues follow him. They bid the guards goodbye, and the guards wonder if they should also continue exploring the labyrinth in hopes of finding the monsters or if they should wait for it. The dungeon baby leads his colleagues toward the first floor, and the lady asks him where they are going. She wonders if her filming has been destroyed, but he tells them they are leaving the labyrinth immediately. What? They all scream. That wasn't what he told them when he took them away from the guards, and they are angry that he deceived them. They wonder if the reason he has always refused to come to the dungeon is that he is a coward, and they say that they have spent so much to get to the dungeon, and they won't allow him to waste their money. They insist they have to make a video of the guards as they fight the monster so they will return back to the dungeon. As they argue, they hear so much noise and trembling behind them. The dungeon baby immediately figures out what's happening while his colleagues are still hell-bent on what they will gain from that trip. He requests that they keep quiet and says they can't allow the predators to know that their team is divided and they should let the predators meet just the guards. They ask him to explain better, and he tells them that the monster which was killed wasn't a predator. Instead, he is prey running to safety. When the guards killed him, the predators heard noises and they found out there are intruders. The lady accuses him of allowing the guards to die. She says that if he knew all that, why didn't he tell the guards about it so they wouldn't wait behind to die? He tells her there is no way he could have convinced them. He says if they all run together, they will die together because there are already blood signs on the guard's body, so there is no way they can survive. He concludes that the reason the guards died in the first place is that they refused to listen to his opinion, and he is also right about that. As they argue, they do not know that the second guy among them has a monster's blood on his shoe. The blood attracts the predator and it attacks them. The monster takes the boy immediately and kills him. When the dungeon baby looks at the monster, he sees that it's the wolf monkey. He wonders why the wolf monkey is on the first floor and he gets terrified. He looks ahead and he sees that the wolf monkeys are there in a pack, and they are many. He wonders if they have locked their location and if they knew they were in the dungeon before. That doesn't seem like the right place or time for him to start thinking of the possibilities, and all he wants is to survive. He stands up to them and brings out his sword to fight. He attacks them by their weakness, and the young girl who has assumed he is a coward is shocked to see him fight that great. He tries to run because he knows there is no way he can defeat them all. He carries the girl to follow him, although he tells her he will run at the pace she expects of a dungeon baby, so she may break a few of her ribs in the process. The wolf monsters chase after them angrily so they will catch up with them. But the young boy is also fast enough, so he takes the girl outside the dungeon. He brings her down, telling her that she is safe for now and that she did well in the dungeon. He tells her the monsters may still chase after her, so they have to run away quickly. Instead of running for her dear life, she tries to accuse him. She asks him why he allowed the other people they had come with die in the dungeon. He doesn't understand what she is saying, so she explains that if he is strong enough to use a dull knife to defeat the monsters, why didn't he help the others when they were in trouble? He tells her she is mistaken. He says he was hired as a tour guide and not as their guard. He asks her if there is anything in his contract with them that asks him to protect them, and he replies that there is no clause like that, so he doesn't have any responsibility to protect them. In tears, she reminds him that those people died, but he then tells her that's Jaiser dungeon for her. He tells her she was the one that hired a bunch of arrogant idiots as guards, and he tried to warn them, but they did all the things he told them not to do, so it is not his fault that anyone died. He says if they had all listened to his instruction from when they stepped their feet into the dungeon, it could have lessened their damages. In fact, they wouldn't have met the monsters in the first place. She still doesn't have all the answers to her questions. If he insists that it isn't his responsibility to save them, which is why he allowed others to die, then why did he save her? He tells her the reason he saved her is that if she had died, there would be no one who would pay him his fee. He says he is still working at that moment, and he needs to be paid, so he will keep her alive in order for her to pay him his fee. As he looks forward, his eyes catch a sign, and he finds out that they are in the labyrinth emblem. He explains to her that since they were in trouble, he just ran in any direction, and unfortunately, they have ended up in the labyrinth, so they have to run off immediately before they get into danger. As they attempt to run, the ground opens, and they fall. Due to the fall, his hands break, but he doesn't feel too bad about it because it isn't that much of an injury. He is worried about the lady that requested him, not like he is worried. But he feels there is no way she could have survived that fall, and now that she is dead, he has lost his money. He is in a deeper situation than just money. He sees the labyrinth sign in front of him, and he sees that he is in the middle of the labyrinth. This means nothing more than the fact that he is screwed. He tries to walk into an open place there, but he doesn't see any sign of life there, and he assumes that he is in an abandoned labyrinth. As he approaches the snake sign emblem by the labyrinth, the snake receives life and attacks him. The snake crawls around him. He tries to run off, but the snake is faster than him, so the snake bites him. Unfortunately for him, he also dies from that attack, which means all the guests at the labyrinth died that day. He suddenly wakes up. He wonders why he isn't dead, and he could never have imagined that he would survive what he had just encountered. He is sure that he saw the venom from that snake spread around his body, but he doesn't know how he survived, so he assumes that someone helped him. He also notices his hands, which were broken during the attack, are now better, and his body is completely getting better. He looks at his surroundings, and it isn't the place he was when he was bitten by the snake. The place looks like the front of the labyrinth, and when he looks further, he sees Junjus lying almost dead on the floor. He sees that she is still breathing, although her injuries are severe. He tries to call out for help, but sees there is no first aid nearby, and he also can't find anyone. He concludes that no one helped him. He knows he has to save her, and she might die if he lingers more at the labyrinth. He backs her at his back, and he tells her to stay with him as she takes him to safety. After taking her out of the dungeon and taking care of her, he returns home. As he opens his door, the first voice that welcomes him is that from the television. The newscasters announce that there was a fatal accident at the dungeon, which killed about 7 of the 9 people who had gone to the dungeon, and say they think the attack was caused by beasts. The news continues and says that the only survivor, Miss Jang, was saved by the dungeon baby, Mr. Kim, and he wonders how the news spreads that easily. It really hasn't been 2 hours since they left the dungeon, and everyone already knows what has happened. He is glad that they found a video that shows that he tried to advise the guards, and they didn't listen to him. If there wasn't video proof that he didn't purposely put the guest in harm, he would have been fined for causing the accident. He brings out the sum of money he had earned that day. He remembers that he left the first part of the money in his sister, Hyunji's room, and he wants to quickly put that part of it in her room. Hyunji arrives, she calls out for him, and he notices her face seems sour. He asks her what is wrong with her and if she is crying. He assumes that she has seen the money he kept in her room. She brings out the envelope of money, telling him that she saw the money. He knows that the money is a lot of money to her, so it is normal that she cries tears of joy. He gives her the second envelope, telling her that she should use the money for her wedding. He tells her she doesn't have to be worried about him as he didn't do anything wrong to get that money for her. His father returns home angrily. He asks him what is the meaning of that conversation, saying he doesn't know what kind of son behaves the way Kim does. He says he heard at work that Kim went to risk his life to work for money, and he had to leave work quickly, so he will confirm if Kim is alright. His father screams at Hyunji. He reminds her that he has told her to give the money back to Kim, and he commands her to give the money back, asking Kim if he thinks his parents are so useless that he has to risk his life so he can marry his sister off. He tries to lie to his father. He says that he didn't risk his life and he didn't do anything risky. He says he was working at the convenience store, and he doesn't think the convenience store is now a battlefield where they can say he risked his life. His father gets angry at him. He wonders if it's because Kim knows he isn't his biological father. That is why he underestimates him, and asks if Kim thinks he wouldn't know what he had done to get that money. Kim figures that his lies can't work. He decides to apologize, and he apologizes to his father for lying. Before that settle, Hyunji stretches the envelopes to him. She asks him to take the money back, and he reluctantly takes it. She walks out of the room immediately. Her father complains that he thought he had raised her well, but it turns out he didn't raise her well, and she is too selfish. He comments that he didn't think raising a child would be that stressful, but Kim tries to convince him that Hyunji has no fault in all that has happened. He tries to convince his father that he gave her the money because he doesn't have anything to use the money for, so instead of allowing him to waste the money, why don't they use it on Hyunji's wedding? His father tells him that if Hyunji had known the means by which he got that money, she wouldn't have collected it from him. He tells him he is also a member of their family and shouldn't upset the family that way. The man asks him to go to his room and rest, but warns him that he should never do that again. As Kim walks away, he thinks about family. Does he really have one? Adopting a child from the dungeon, especially a child known as the dungeon baby, earns the parents a huge sum of money, and there have been many situations where families adopt dungeon babies so that they will collect the money attached to it without any intention of really taking care of the baby. As a result, they will maltreat and bully the child until he turns against them, and it will lead to the death of the parents. Compared to what some other dungeon babies have encountered, he is very lucky. He was adopted by a family who indeed took him as a family member. However, his sweet family is having issues at the moment due to Hyunji's wedding, and he wants to help out. He enters his room and looks at the tattoo on his hand. He doesn't know the origin of that tattoo, and with the tattoo is also a tablet that shows all his abilities and facilities, although the tablet says he can't activate labyrinth facilities. He doesn't know much about the green tablets, so he spends his time trying to know more about them online. He learns that the green panel looks like the tablets they see in games, and the inscription of Naga's labyrinth, which he found on the panel, is probably part of the labyrinth where he was bitten by the snake. He wonders if the abandoned labyrinth he has found chose him as his master, and he feels the portal also exists in games. He notices something different on the portal, and he sees that a new feature has been added. He clicks on it to check, and when he does so, it looks like the portal breaks, and he falls into the labyrinth, the exact place he had found the snake. He wonders what is happening to him. He looks around and assumes it's the same place he had fallen early. However, on a second glance at the area, it looks like it is slightly different from the place he had died. He sees the snake again, and the snake activates. He wonders what he will do because he doesn't want to die again. Thinking of his past fight with the snake, he has found out that the snake is actually so fast that he can't figure out the snake's movement with his eyes. He says he has to fight the snake from their fight encounter. When the snake comes nearer to him, he counterattacks in such a great way that he hits the snake, and the snake falls. He is proud of himself, and he insults the snake, asking if the snake thinks he will fall for that kind of attack twice. He knows that he hasn't defeated the snake yet. He says he has only used a temporary measure to stop the snake for a while, and he knows the snake is strong enough to tear off from his clothes. The only way he can fight and defeat that snake is only if he has a weapon. The snake is the 18,230 snake releasers. It is the snake that sits on the throne of Naga. The snake says Kim is too small and inferior to handle the weight of his crown. But he isn't in the condition to hold back the flow of time, so he will consider what has happened between them as fate. Kim doesn't understand all he is saying. He thinks about what the snake means by Naga's throne and asks if the snake is the labyrinth master. Without explaining anything to him, the snake calls him the Naga's new king and bows to him. The snake disappears immediately, and Kim wonders what's happening. He screams, asking that the snake should return and give him an explanation. He says that he hates labyrinth, and since he escaped from the labyrinth at the beginning, he has never returned to the labyrinth. He only came that one time because of Hyunji's wedding fee. He is super angry at himself, and he wonders why he keeps going through annoying things one after the other. He wishes he had listened to his parents' advice and he had completely avoided the labyrinth. At least if he had done so, he wouldn't have met the snake in the first place. At that point, he hears Hyunji's voice calling out for him and asking if he is in the room, as she wants to see him. He tells her he is still changing, so he will prevent her from entering. He sees the broken portal he entered the labyrinth through, and he is shocked that sounds from his room can travel to the labyrinth. Hyunji keeps calling out for him, and she tells him that she will be coming in. He screams to stop her as he tries to find out how he will leave that labyrinth. Since he has no other choice, he jumps back into the room with the same portal and comments that he feels his body is breaking. But to his shock, his body is just fine. He opens the door for Hyunji, who asks what the noise she just heard means. She sees that he hasn't even changed his clothes and notices that he is sweating profusely. She looks through his door and sees his television. She assumes he is playing a game and tries to force her way into the room, but he stops her, telling her that it is just a stream. She had never seen his stream before. She doesn't even know that her brother, who she thinks is uptight, would engage in activities meant for teens in his age. He wonders if he is really uptight, and she reminds him that growing up, he had no hobbies. He would lock himself in the room as a kid. He knows that she isn't wrong, and he tries to think about his past. After leaving the labyrinth as a child, he tries to stop thinking about the labyrinth. He wasn't used to the peace he was feeling at that time, and that peace made him so uncomfortable that he will close his ears. He feels the reason other dungeon babies are still pulled to the labyrinth is that they can't get used to the peace in the world. He asks Hyunji why she visited him, and Hyunji apologizes to him. She says she doesn't know that he went back to the labyrinth because of her. He tries to tell her that it doesn't matter and that it's not because of her. He asks her to collect the money, and when he tries to bring it out, he remembers that the money is in his coat, and he has forgotten his coat in the labyrinth. He tries to push Hyunji out of his room so he can go for his clothes. As he looks through the portal, he sees a monster holding his coat. He gets furious that the money he had struggled for is somewhere in a monster's pocket. Hyunji notices that he is absent from their conversation, and she calls out for him. He tries to lie to her as about the reason for his absence, telling her that he is playing a game at the moment, and the game is so serious that everything that happened to him that day has vanished from his head, so he pleads with her indulgence so he can enjoy his new hobby. Left with no other choice, she allows him to go. He locks the door with the highest speed of light, and even Hyunji is shocked and wowed by how fast the knobs of the door get locked. That was the first time she sees him excitedly, and it means a lot to her. For him, he knows he isn't playing a game, and the issues he is having are so large that he can't bring himself to expose them to her. He locks the doorknob, and he enters into the dungeon through the portal that he has in his room. Immediately he enters, he sees his coat lying on the floor, and the first thing he does is run there to take his coat. He assumes that the monster he saw playing with his clothes earlier has gone, and he tries to check the pocket of the coat for Hyunji's money. He finds his wallet and his phone in his pocket. Everything he left inside the coat is still there except Hyunji's money. The portal with the green snake tries to talk with him. He tells him that when he is away, an imp came to steal his money, and to find the imp, he must finish synchronization and activate the labyrinth. He is so furious he unleashes his anger on the inhumane portal beside him, asking what type of bullshits they are asking him to do. He wonders why an imp will come to steal pieces of paper when it is not as if the imp can actually use the money. He figures that getting angry won't solve the solution to his problem, and he needs much more than being angry. He doesn't want all the efforts he put into getting that money to go to waste, and if the labyrinth wants him to activate it to get back his money, he will do just that. He sits on the table in the labyrinth and he starts the activation. He sees 2 purple crystals by his side and he touches them. He sees that the details of the labyrinth are locked and he can only access it after he does the synchronization. To him, the marble he has found there functions just like the tattoo on his hand. But what's wrong with him doesn't give him the opportunity to think about those petty things. He needs to find his money, so he is left with no other choice, and since the labyrinth orders him to synchronize, he begins with the synchronization. He knows that if it isn't that his money is at risk and he needs the money, they would never have agreed to the silly wish of the labyrinth. But for now, he has to do it. He decides that he will just add it to the countless labyrinth that he has gotten to, and he says that probably he is getting drawn into the dungeon like the other dungeon baby get drawn. Immediately he starts the synchronization. The system tries to check his qualification and he sees the portal loading, but he doesn't know how it works. He had thought that after he clicks on the yes, the portal will just open for him. Even the manual he had read before has told him that after he pressed it, a gate will appear to him. Accepting to do the synchronization at that moment seems like a waste of time for him. He says no matter how much he thinks about what he is going through, there is not much way to explain to him that he will understand, so he feels it is better he leaves the whole thing and he tries to find the imp that took his money physically instead of waiting on a system to help him with it. As he is about to stand up from the chair, the system finishes their confirmation, and he finds out that Jinwoo is really qualified as the king, and the 18,230 Snake's Nest has registered Kim Jinwoo as their master. He keeps hearing the voice of the portal echoing in his head. After registering him, the system begins with reorganizing the labyrinth according to his data. The room changes, a door is kept in the room, and there is better lighting. He thinks he prefers that to how the room was before, and after the system finishes with the rearrangement, he declares the synchronization complete. At the same time, Kim looks at the room, commenting that the room is different from the way it was before, although he still thinks the room is creepy. He looks at his portal, trying to find the new improvement that his labyrinth has given him, but he doesn't find much change on his portal except the gate on the stats window. He wonders what the gate means, and he assumes the gate in front of him is the gate to the labyrinth. He sees the imp that has stolen his money peeping into that room through the gate, and the imp tries to dodge, but he commands him to come. The imp didn't know he could notice or see him move. Kim also acknowledges that a normal person wouldn't have been able to see the imp move. He goes nearer to the imp, and he squeezes his neck. He says he didn't think the imp would come back to meet him despite knowing what he has done. But Kim doesn't have any interest in killing the imp. All he wants is his money, so he commands the imp to give him his money immediately if he doesn't want to die. However, he sees that the imp isn't making any move to return any money. He wonders what can be happening, and the only plausible conclusion is probably if the imp no longer has his money. He confronts him, asking if he doesn't have the money again. He squeezes his neck, asking him if he knows what kind of money he has misplaced. He is angry. He decides that he needs to find his money no matter what, and as a result of squeezing the imp when he drops his body, he sees a red shining gem on his hand, which he recognizes as the down gem. He knows that down gems are special gems that are only found in the Geyser Labyrinth. Most times, they are always buried in the ground of the Geyser Labyrinth, or they are hidden within rare plants that grow only in the Geyser Labyrinth. However, the two methods by which the gem can be found are very difficult to use, so adventurers who need the gem kill dangerous monsters to get it. They are highly priced, and their prices are ridiculously high. Even a gem that is not up to 1 carat will be priced for other millions of one. While the one he had gotten from the imp is actually bigger than the weights of the ones he has seen around, and according to him, it is about the size of his thumb, so he will sell it much higher and probably get paid tens of million won. That doesn't change the fact that the imp took his money. He confronts the imp again, and he squeezes him by his neck the second time and again, and he finds another down gem. It turns out to be 2, and since it seems like the imp is a residual of several down gems and he has a lot inside of him, Kim decides to make it a duty to squeeze him and knock him up so he will get many more gems. The imp gets scared, and at that point, when he gets the opportunity to leave that part of the labyrinth, he runs off immediately without checking back. Kim didn't bother to go after him. He had gotten 2 different down gems, which is more than enough to get him back the money he needs. However, he suddenly comes to a realization. The portal shines a light on his face, and he sees another notification on the portal. The portal tells him that due to the damage to the labyrinth, he has sacrificed one of his down gems, and the damage durability of the labyrinth will be restored and upgraded. He wonders who made the command that he should sacrifice one of the 2 gems he has gotten and the gems that he wishes to use. As he thinks about this, 1 gem in his hand disappears. He is furious but doesn't know what to do, and it seems like the labyrinth isn't even asking for his consent in any of it. He receives another notification from the portal, which tells him that he has 24 hours till they are done with the upgrade, and he also has 72 hours left to raise the rank of the labyrinth. He is so angry. The gems which just disappeared from his hands are gems that could be worth a car, and now he can't even have any of it. 4 days later, Hyunji eventually gets married. Despite all of his worries about Hyunji's wedding, the wedding goes well, and the ceremony is graced by several people who have come to celebrate the couple. The husband's family is quite supportive too, which made it easier for them. Also, he was able to sell a down gem at a reasonable price after he negotiated with a merchant to sell it for that price. He remembers his negotiation with the merchant and how the merchant refuses to pay him anything more than 18 million. The merchant insists that if he does pay anything more than that, the deal will be a loss to him. Although the price he is being offered at the merchant office is quite lower than the price he was expecting, but he views that it will be enough for them to deal with Hyunji's wedding gift. He knows it will be an issue if his father finds out about the gem or the money, so he has to give the money to Hyunji directly or find a better means. He also wonders how a piece of stone can be worth that much, but I doubt he cares about that. All he cares about is the money he will get from selling the gem. He gets a notification from the labyrinth that there are 24 seconds to his upgrade completion, and that reminds him of how the labyrinth stole a gem from him to pay for an upgrade that he didn't ask for, and he says if the labyrinth didn't steal one of his gems, he would have about 36 million. Well, he tries to take away those thoughts because he knows there is no point in thinking of what has happened, and no matter how angry he gets, he still can't get the gem back. The upgrade eventually finishes, and he is more worried that the money he has paid for the upgrade is worth his stress. He returns home, and he opens the portal to the labyrinth. When he enters, he sees that the labyrinth has been upgraded and the rank of the labyrinth has increased from rank 1 to rank 2. However, there is a bad news. He reads a notification from his portal that tells him that due to the activation of the labyrinth, beasts, monsters, and other animals in the other part of the dungeon has sensed its presence, and the labyrinth's defense is too weak. The gate durability is low, and there is no security by the gate. Also, the facility called Nega Nest has been created beside Kim's room. He wonders what is a Nega Nest, and he sees the room appear to him. The room still has walls blocking it. He wonders if that room is the Nega Nest, as it is quite different from what he had pictured the nest to look like on his head. The room is empty, and what he had expected is that the room will be a more sticky and wet environment because of their nature as reptiles. Suddenly, he feels like there is someone behind him, and the force and energy of the monster behind him call his attention. Without spending too much time guessing, he figures the monster is the dungeon beast, and he wonders where the dungeon beast came out of. He gets a notification that 6 high-ranked Naga workers have appeared in the facility, and the workers will be summoned each time the labyrinth ranks. He wonders if the dungeon beast is also part of the workers summoned, and if that's true, that's definitely not one of the things he was expecting to see. He sees that the workers are waiting upon him, and he gets a notification that they are waiting for his command. He doesn't know what command he should give them, but he knows what a low-level worker should do since he was also once an excavator. He commands 3 of the workers, asking them to work as scouts and draw a map with the labyrinth at the center of the map. He asks them to investigate the nearby risk factor of the labyrinth, but in the course of doing their duty, they would avoid battle as much as possible. They should ensure their safety and survival. They go on their duty, although he knows their foremost duty is for them to act as his guards, but he doesn't have anything he wants them to guard. He asks the other workers to dig a wall at the back of the nest and create storage. He says he doesn't have any expectations for that group as they are short and stout, so nothing good will come out of them. He says he hasn't seen any other creature that can be prey in that dungeon except them. Irrespective of what he had thought about them, they really impressed him. They dug out of the room in about an hour, and he didn't imagine that 3 of them would have been able to dog out a room in about an hour. They build the storage, and a part of the workers returned to him. He didn't see any part of the workers he had sent outside the dungeon. He goes towards the door to find them, and he sees just one of them. He asks if that means the other ones were dead, and he regrets not following them to fulfill the mission in the first place, as workers don't exist in the summon category of Naga military force, so it means all the workers he has lost can't be summoned and they are permanently lost. The only worker who has returned to him tells him the others are fine and he doesn't have to worry. He says the spoils were too many, that he had to come first to leave some of it. The workers are happy that he cares about them and that he is worried, and as a result, that increases the efficiency of the workers, and they pay more attention to their duty. They bring him the map he has asked them to draw, and he opens it. He updates the map to see the chamber with low gate durability and no military forte, and he says there is no need for him to run around to create a map as there are several things nearby. He goes to the nest to meet his workers, and he sees that they have gathered a lot of spoils. They explain to him that they don't know what he wants exactly, so they just brought whatever they find. He doesn't know if he should be happy about that or even sad. The spoils they have brought look like ancient items from the Jaiser Great War, but it looks like most of them have been destroyed or they have rusted. That also shows that there is no proof of people being at that particular labyrinth for a long period of time. As he keeps thinking about all his options in his labyrinth, one of his workers informs him that they got some gems in the process of gathering spoils. He collects it, and he sees it as a down gem. They further explain to him that they saw more stuff like that during their adventure, so he tells them that they should gather with each other and bring gems like that to him. Without wasting much of his time, he runs towards the portal so he can return to his room, as he has to evaluate the worth of that gem as fast as possible. However, he stops by the gate. He wonders what will happen to the workers if he leaves them at that moment. He feels if the labyrinth gets attacked, they will all die, and he also sees that they are very sad because he is leaving. He goes to their representative to confirm if there are indeed more down gems at that part of the dungeon, and when the worker replies affirmatively, he decides to make a decision. He says that he knows the labyrinth has been beneficial to him and he has gained from it, but that gem is their money. He sacrificed a low-rank gem and 2 lower-rank gems that he had gotten to the altar and replaces it with labyrinth energy. He sees that the labyrinth has only offered him the possibility, and he wonders if he had just traded gems which will gain him millions in one for just possibilities in the labyrinth. He thinks about himself since he had left the labyrinth as a kid. He tries too hard to stop thinking about the labyrinth, and he even locks himself inside because of it, but just one visit to the labyrinth has made him obsessed. He eventually gets why most dungeon babies are always obsessed with the labyrinth and why they are dying to throw their lives at the dungeon, and how he is the different one. He concludes that except for the danger which is at the dungeon and also the uncomfortable way he felt while he lived a dignified life in the outside world, the way he felt wasn't because he was trying to adjust to how the world was. It was just boredom affecting him. He was bored in that world, and returning to the labyrinth made him feel better. Seeing how excited he is, his workers promise to make him proud and bring glory to the Naga Empire. He requests that they bring him glory great enough to cover the whole of Jaiser dungeon. He courteously summons Naga. He checks out the unit he can summon. He can summon Naga soldiers rank 1, and their maintenance fee is the lowest. All he needs to do is to pay 1/8 of a down gem each month. They are wardens who defend the labyrinth and soldiers who do not know fear and specialize in combat only. The second-class Naga maid, rank 1, takes care of the tasks needed in the labyrinth, and compared to the soldiers, they have a high maintenance and they can also lead the park in battles, but they have weak combat abilities. He thinks about the units he can summon. He thinks it's fair if he can summon units to fight and protect the people, but he doesn't know that there will be a maintenance fee for the purpose. He also thinks he shouldn't spend carelessly on units that he will have to maintain unless he has enough down gems to maintain them. Since he really needs a soldier to help secure his labyrinth, he will summon just a soldier and a maid. He spends 1 down gem to summon these 2 workers. The soldier comes out holding a sword, and that gets him a little relaxed. He has been wondering if the soldier they will give him will be holding a sword. And seeing the soldier he has, he feels he can put the responsibility of defending the labyrinth in his care. He commands the soldier to defend the storage with the other workers at the gate. He watches as the soldier leaves his front. He looks at the soldier's physical appearance and says that just by looking at its appearance, he can feel the soldier has the physical ability to defeat monsters in the dungeon until the level 5 monsters, and that's a relief for him. The system shows him that he has successfully summoned a maid, which costs him 2 down gem energy. The system shows him that the mystery of Jaiser has been activated, and he has passed incredibly rare odds. As a result, a heroic maid has been summoned for him. He doesn't know what heroic maid means, nor does he understand anything the system is saying, so he repeats the words again. A very shining light shines on the labyrinth, everywhere brights up, and he thinks there is trouble. He screams that they should stop the glare. Suddenly, his heroic maid appears to him, a maid named Dominique. Dominique is a heroic maid because she is incomparable to the other maids. She gives good advice to her masters, and she is dedicated to the duty of serving her master. She bows down to him and calls him master. He notices that he didn't see her mouth move when she made that sound, but he hears it in his brain and wonders if she is using telepathy to communicate with him. She eventually speaks to him, asking him to tell her what to do. All the workers he has at the labyrinth, none of them have the ability to speak, but he is shocked to see that Dominique can speak like a normal person. He explains the situation of the labyrinth to her and all they have put in place, including what they need at the moment. She understands all he has said to her, immediately asking him to confirm if that is their current situation. She asks to confirm if the tutorial isn't over yet, and he replies to her affirmatively. Trying to help her master solve his situation, she asks him to give her permission to explore the labyrinth map so she can find a solution, and he gives her, although he wonders what she can do differently. After she checks it, she tells him there is a lode and a plant with a down gem around them. He is shocked that she is so good at maps too. She tells him they need to see if the plant exists before making plans on it, and they should see for themselves before maintaining it. She tells him she will explain the rest to him as they walk. He accepts her idea, especially since he also wants to see for himself. Trying to explain the map to him, she shows him a stalactite. cave near the labyrinth, and the cave wall is so weak that they can break the wall. To access the lode easier than they can set up a gathering station for them, to gather the down gems in the opening under the stalactite. She further explains that the lode is behind the wall, and sometimes, down gems can be personally mined instead of the minerals that go to the forte. She takes him to some of the plants around and tells him that although the gems inside those plants are small, they can also be harvested as down gems. The plants also have strong survivability, so he doesn't need to maintain them for him to use them, and since they are around the plant already, she will just harvest some of the down gems so they can use it. Since they have broken the wall and attach an extension of their labyrinth to that side of the wall, they have increased the territory of their labyrinth. She tries to tell him that it is easier for them to defeat the nearby passages to increase their labyrinth, and there is also drinking water beside them. Their labyrinth is well positioned in the middle of water and several passages. While looking at the map, Kim sees a red sign that looks like a dangerous mark, and he asks her what she thinks the mark is. She assumes that the marked places are marked as territories of wild beasts. It looks like a large area that is blocked all over, and to her, it seems that when the workers went to draw the map, they confirmed that the beasts were around that side, and they retreated. She advises that depending on the beast in that part of the labyrinth, they can set up a hunting area and use the money to help with their labyrinth maintenance too. He wants to call her name, but Dominique sounds too hard to pronounce. Well, he isn't wrong. The name is too complex for him, so he asks her if he can call her Dominic, and she accepts the new name, telling him the name is extremely incredible. He can't deny that Dominic is a plus to him at the labyrinth. She is smart, and she knows her way around difficult situations, not to deny that she indeed gives good advice. He gives her good comments, but she refuses to be flattered and claims she is just doing her responsibility as a labyrinth maid. He feels she is trying to be humble and tells her she doesn't need to be humble. She has been a good plus to him and has made his work easier. When he took that responsibility, he never could imagine that there will be a Naga who will communicate this perfectly with him and even give him great advice. He explains to her that he is from the world above, which will make it difficult for him to stay there every time. He says he doesn't wish to neglect the labyrinth, but he will be in his world most time. She understands what he means and wants immediately. With her, it seems like he doesn't have to explain too much. She tells him that they don't have a labyrinth core yet, so it's not like creatures will swim at them immediately, but he has to get ready for anything in that world that they are, so she suggests that he should increase the unit and upgrade the labyrinth as soon as possible so they can protect their labyrinth, and that means they must consume so much down gem. He asks her if she can help him with the down gems, but she tells him that extracting the down gem energy, summoning of workers, servants, soldiers, and maids, or upgrading of the labyrinth can only be done by the master, the owner of the labyrinth, so she can't do it for him. After speaking to him for a long while without having any questions for him, it turns out she has a question now. She asks him what will happen to her if she doesn't meet his standards. They could have situations where Nagas will leave, and even if beasts harm the labyrinth owner, they still can't absorb the labyrinth, as only the ones chosen by the labyrinth itself can be labyrinth owners. She is sure there isn't a Naga that is stupid enough to bring down the royal who encompasses the labyrinth. He remembers that he has a lot to do. He tells Dominic that they should stop the chit-chat and talk later, but he is really glad to work with her, and he looks forward to how they will maintain the labyrinth together. She promises him that she will do her best. He remembers her advice that he should upgrade the labyrinth with the gems she had gathered earlier, and asks if it will be enough. She tells him it will be enough, and he offers it to the altar to get his upgrade done. The system notifies him that he has offered 3 good quality immediate grade down gems, and the labyrinth upgrade is starting. He takes some of the gems home as he also needs some money, so he takes it to the labyrinth down gem jewelry. The merchant welcomes him back, and he offers the merchant another gem. The merchant wonders where he is getting his own gems from. He comments that he heard Jaiser isn't doing well recently yet, and Kim keeps getting gems. He says the veteran explorers keep roaming around after all the lower floor monsters have gone up. Kim doesn't even know that the first floor isn't doing well. The merchant tells him that wolf monkeys who naturally live on the 8th floor are coming to the first floor, and the explorers can't defeat or fight them. The man complains that the quality of strong and intelligent explorers has fallen for the last 5 years, and it is affecting the harvesting of down gems, so his supply has been lacking. The man says since Kim doesn't want to say where he got the gem from, he won't ask Kim where Kim got it from, but he has to beg Kim that Kim should please contract with only his company. He promises that he won't leech off Kim, so Kim doesn't have to be afraid. Kim thinks about all the unwarranted information he has gotten. He has lived his life being cut off from the labyrinth so much that he doesn't know what is happening in the labyrinth, so he thinks coming to that merchant shop will help him get the information he needs about the labyrinth since all the down gems come there. He feels the proposal the merchant made for him is quite profitable, so he accepts it on the condition that he will get information about the labyrinth in return. The man accepts to do that, says that's not hard for him and all he needs is good gems, and since they are now partners, he will give Kim a good job opportunity. He asks Kim if Kim has heard about hell spiders. He explains that hell spiders are strong and hard to face, but they all have down gems. The merchant asks him if his rank is high, telling him that if he kills just one hell spider, he will earn more than enough money. Kim refuses the offer and he turns to leave. The merchant tries to convince him, telling him he heard Kim's family isn't that rich and he needs enough financial support, and that gets Kim angry. He turns back and breaks the table, asking the merchant if the merchant did background research on him. The merchant knows he is in trouble and he has angered Kim. He tries to explain himself and asks Kim to calm down and listen to him first. He tells him that the business is like working with dungeon babies who are basically superhuman, and not all dungeon babies are as gentle as he is. He has met several violent dungeon babies, and if the items come to him dirty, he has a responsibility too, especially Kim's items. He comments that Kim's first item is suspiciously good, and the quality is great. Kim tells them he knows the item is good, and he got it with his hands. The merchant says most of the people around have lived a hard life, and they have lost a lot of their parents and siblings to blades. He says that it is hard for them to trust someone who has nothing to lose and nothing to protect. Most dungeon babies only have themselves to take care of, so if they don't feel like working again, there is nothing the merchant can do. But for Kim, he has a family. Before he finishes his explanation, Kim assumes he has a bad plan for his family and tells him that if anything happens to his family, he will kill the merchant. He threatens the merchant that the merchant has experienced what happens when a dungeon baby does psychotic, and he will experience another madness firsthand. The merchant says he has no intention of hurting his family, and he promises that he will not try to investigate about him again. He says he feels like he has sacrificed his own credit and good name to check Kim's credit. After they finish their fight, he attempts to leave the company. He says the merchant should send his gems money to his account. After he leaves the office and the merchant looks at his table, the table has scattered, and even the remains can't be packed. He comments that the dungeon babies are always too violent. At home, he dreams about the past when he was in the dungeon. He remembers as everyone tells him to run and tells him the spiders are going crazy. He hears several screams from people around asking to be saved, and he gets attacked too. He wonders why the spiders are turning on them, saying that they dug the entire ground for their labyrinth, so why will they do that to them? He wakes up screaming and realizes it's just a dream. He hears Dominic's voice, and she asks him if he is okay and asks what is wrong with him. He tells her he just had a dream about his past, and that's all, so she doesn't have to worry as it is just the past. Dominic and the other workers look at him suspiciously. They try to ensure that he is fine, but he says it's nothing, and they really do not have to worry. He looks at the new workers that he has gotten from his upgrade, and he is disappointed. Dominic notices the disappointment on his face, and she asks him what is wrong. He feels the workers do not look very labyrinthy like he would have assumed them to look like. She asks him to tell her if they aren't up to his liking and he could do something, but he says he likes them the way they are, so she shouldn't worry about it, and there is no way he wouldn't like strange things after he was born and raised in the labyrinth. He becomes a little less nervous, and he says that it is thanks to the little not-so-labyrinthy monsters. He tells Dominic about the Hell Dragon. He tells her he heard they exist in the dungeon, but there is a long distance between their dungeon and the hell spider, so their labyrinth isn't in danger, but he thinks other, deeper floor beasts can still come towards their labyrinth. He asks her about their upgrade status, and she tells him they have about 3 seconds for the upgrade to finish. He has upgraded to the 3rd rank upgrade to the labyrinth, and he wonders what the improvement will be. His 3rd rank upgrade eventually finishes, and for his upgrade, he has gotten the ability to construct to the new places that have been previously unlocked. He also has the ability to summon new units. As a bonus for upgrading, he gets 6 new Naga workers, and he has eventually gotten a Naga core. They all look ahead, and they see the heart of the labyrinth. They know that if the heart of the labyrinth gets destroyed, the labyrinth feature will get disabled, and since there is a limit to the power of the labyrinth alone, there are times when a thing like that gets spawned as the power of the labyrinth increases. Dominic feels like an unneeded weak point of the labyrinth has just been revealed, and having the heart of the labyrinth sounds like a two-edged sword. As a disadvantage, everything in the labyrinth will collapse when the heart gets attacked. As an advantage, even when the labyrinth is attacked, if they can protect the heart with all their power and strength, despite being in ruins, when the heart is saved, the labyrinth can be recovered. The heart of the labyrinth is a counterproductive feature that they wish they haven't gotten at that moment. An earlier recall Dominic's conversation about the core, where she said that since they do not have a core, the monsters won't know of their existence. But now, that they have a core. The monsters have been notified that there is a labyrinth in that part of the dungeon, and they are now aware of their presence, which will call more threat to them. They get a notification that a swarm of 20 horned rats is coming toward the labyrinth, and there is just about 1 minute before they reach their labyrinth. He screams at Dominic, telling her that an attack is coming. She advises him that he has to increase his army, as there is no way he can defeat a pack of horned rats with just one Naga soldier. He doesn't know anything about his enemy. He says he has never heard of horned rats before, and he doesn't know how to defeat them. Left with no other choice, he decides to summon more Naga soldiers. Another disadvantage of doing that is that he doesn't even know the powers and capacity of a Naga soldier yet. He opens his portal to check the capacity of a Naga soldier. He now has about 5 summonable units. The first one is the Naga soldiers, who specialize in combat only, and the second unit is the Naga archers, who are deadly snipers and they can pierce the enemy's heart with arrows. The third unit is the Naga warriors. These are born warriors, and they possess tenacious physiques. The fourth unit is the Naga mage. They are mages who explore the mystery of the dungeon. They also have the ability to dominate enemies with magic. And the last unit he can summon is the Naga priest. They are the first priests to deify snakes, and they have the powers to heal. Kim is left with the option of picking the units he wants. He wonders why he has been given more units, and most of these units have bigger energy cores than he had imagined. The energy down gem he is left is just about 21, and the horned rats that are coming are about 20. So he decides that he should pull all his resources to get Naga soldiers, since he thinks that is what he needs at the moment. Dominic convinces him otherwise. She tells him that since it's horned rats, a Naga soldier can defeat about 4 at a time, and a warrior or a priest equal 2 of a soldier's strength, while an archer equals 3 of a soldier's strength. On the other hand, a mage matches 5 of the soldier's strength. The disadvantage of these units is that, despite being powerful, they are weak to melee attack compared to a soldier, so he has to ensure that he is careful. He has gotten all he needs to make a decision, and he is glad Dominic is by his side in these dangerous times. He holds her happily, telling her he is glad he has her. He concludes by summoning 1 more Naga soldier and 2 Naga warriors. He immediately goes ahead to do the summoning, and the system notifies him that he has summoned 1 Naga soldier and 2 warriors. He looks at the great warriors that have arrived in front of him. They look more skilled than he had expected, and he says they are becoming his expectations. He brags that with a defense team like the one he has, even wolf monkeys can defeat his labyrinth. He notices that the Naga workers aren't as excited as he is, and he can see their displeasure. He doesn't know what has happened to them, so he tries to ask them. Dominic explains to him that the Naga workers are the type of mutations from high-level Nagas, so the stronger a Naga is, the high chance that he can give birth to subspecies. So the child is facing what it could have been if he had been born normally. So the child still follows orders, but he is slow and he lacks willpower. But since he has more strength than others, there is not much difference in his work rate. She apologizes on behalf of the worker, saying she will teach him, but he tells her not to worry about that. He tells her to gather all the Naga workers, including the ones that had just been added, and she wonders what he wants to tell them. He reassures her that he doesn't intend to fight his workers or get angry at them. He just wants them all to go for a field trip. She doesn't feel that is the best time for that. She reminds him that he said Naga gives importance to honor, and they have their first battle, so it will be too harsh for them to hide in the honorable moment when they should protect their labyrinth. He notices that the small worker is still feeling nervous about the war, so he tells Dominic to do as he has commanded and he will ensure there is no danger. He also promises to protect them with all he has. He needs a weapon, and he thinks of the type of Naga weapon he should use. He decides on a small but grand warrior weapon. As they see the horned rats getting nearer, he commands his armies that they should forge ahead for the battle. He brags that the rats are disrespectful for coming after their labyrinth, and they will make them know what happens to a dog that visits a lion since they have walked into the snake den on their own. The horned rats are excited that they have found some snake cave. They do not know that they are entering into the labyrinth of a team who had prepared diligently for their arrival. They say that the only snakes in the cave are only digging snakes, and they don't have fighting snakes. They even say the master of the cave, Kim, is just a new stupid owner. He doesn't know how to make troops. While their own master knows how to make fighting troops, they brag that their master knows it all. Their master also brags that he is smart and strong, and the Naga labyrinth should go extinct, and it will be the last snake cave to be in the dungeon. They plan that they will eat the snakes, eat their master, and destroy the dungeon when they finish. They claim they are bigger than snakes, and their horns grow stronger. They feel they don't have to pray anymore, and it is about time they stop running away from predators, as they can also become predators. They scream their slogan, saying they no longer want to keep digging. They eventually arrive at the front of the Naga labyrinth, and they prepare to attack. They aim to attack and make the Naga labyrinth go extinct. All they want to do is to kill them all. By the time they arrive at the door, the first set of people they see is the nervous novel workers. They claim that they are snake babies. One of the horned rats set his sword to kill the snake babies. Before he raises the sword down, Kim attacks him and kills him. He commands his Naga members, telling them it is time for them to prove their worth and protect their labyrinth. He tells them they must not leave any of the rats alive. At that point, the rats realize they have used their 2 legs to enter a trap, and the Nagas are prepared for them. They fight them and kill most of them, and the rats are shocked. They remember the conversation they had with a man who asks them if they are satisfied with digging for their life. The rat says the man shouldn't call him from digging and start giving him small talk, but the man asks him if he thinks they were born to dig. The rat says that their work as horned rats are to dig, and their owners are stronger than them, and since they are weak, they have to dig. The man laughs at the rat he had the discussion with. He tells him he thought he was the strongest and bravest of the rats in the labyrinth, but he is disappointed that he is just like his colleagues. The rat insists that there is a difference between being brave and being reckless, and trying to become a predator is just being reckless. The man attempts to leave but says he will give the secret of how rats can become greater than their owners to the other rats, causing that rat to think he is actually saying the truth. He asks the man if he is really going to become the owner of the labyrinth, and that leads to their intention to wage wars against the Naga. However, now that they are on the battlefield, they realize that they aren't good fits for that fight. They wonder if they are going to die, and they see a marble. They see that it is the marble the young man was telling them about, and the man has told them that if they swallow that marble, they will become stronger and they will be able to protect themselves. Irrespective of how they know they may not be able to win that fight, their leader goes for the marble. They brag that if they get the marble, they won't dig to death, and they won't be eaten by predators again. They will no longer have to lower their heads and pretend that they are fine even when they aren't fine or when their member gets killed. They try to hype their master up so he will go for the marble. However, as their master gets near the marble, which is actually the heart of the Naga labyrinth, he sees Naga warriors and even Dominic there. There is no way in hell that they will allow him to swallow the core of their labyrinth. Dominic shouts out for Kim, and the Naga warrior takes the rat and squeezes him with his hand. The Naga warrior jumps to get revenge for his owners, and the whole fight gets scattered. The fight isn't going the way the 2 teams have expected it, as the rats are also proving too hard to be defeated. Unfortunately, the Naga altar gets attacked. Kim gets a notification that his altar has been attacked, and the altar's durability has reduced from 500 to 274. When Kim sees the notification, he screams, "No way, they have targeted their mind to protecting the heart of the labyrinth so much that they neglect the other parts of the labyrinth, and that is now causing issues for him." They leave to protect the altar, and it allows the rats to come nearer to the heart. The rat sees the green marble, and their master goes nearer to swallow it and says it is for his brothers. Before he eats it, Kim hits him. Kim says from what he can tell, he could see that the rat tried to eat the core, and he doesn't know if that's dangerous or not. He asks Dominic what she thinks, and she explains to him that with the strength of the teeth of a horned rat, the rat wouldn't be able to make it to the dent of the core, and thanks to Kim's spear, he didn't even get an opportunity to get nearer to it at all, but he got close to the core. However, they wonder why the head of the rats left his other comrades to go for the core, as they do not know the rationale at which he would have left his comrades for the core, so they have to be careful next time to ensure they don't allow any intruder get nearer to the core. He remembers that the spear he is holding isn't his, and he has to return the spear, but she tells him there is no need to do that. The warrior takes the dead rat leader to the remaining horned rats. Immediately they see the body, their morale reduces. The warrior assumes that the dead rat must be their leader and says he saw that the rats fighting spirit has dropped after they saw the body of the dead rat, and he thinks it is only a matter of time until they will kill the enemy. The warrior says he doesn't know that the rats would be that weak, and they have approached the labyrinth with great intention, which made him nervous. He didn't know that they would get discouraged that fast. He feels they only have numbers, they aren't as strong as the Naga workers. Dominic says she heard from the labyrinth that they are preys used as workers for their heads in the labyrinth. The fact that they are used as prey reminds Kim of his days as a dungeon baby. He asks if it is just like the way they did to dungeon babies during the war, and says if that's what the rats faced, then it is gross. They are weak, and the Nagas are stronger than them. He tries to look at the power level of the Nagas. He says they move smoothly without a wind up with their huge body, and since they have long tails, their center of balance is free, and make them more flexible and quick. He says they will be a bad enemy for him to face. Dominic doesn't understand what he is saying, and she asks him what he means, but he tells her they should just watch and observe the power level of the Naga. The young man who has convinced the rats to go against the Naga labyrinth looks at how the fight went. He sees that they have 1 heroic level made, which is Dominic, and 4 normal level troops. He concludes that Kim is ignorant, as he saw how Kim was trying to rush his summons when he got the notification about the invasion. His master gets angry at him, and he wonders why the man has sent 20 of their servants to check that weak labyrinth. He vows to apologize, but his master tells him it's okay and that he should just ensure he captures more rats to fill the space of the rats they have lost. His master asks about their mercenary, and he says the mercenary is taking care of a blood subjugation outside the labyrinth. He commands that when the mercenary returns, they should prepare for war. The man wonders why his master is leaving war to a mere mercenary, but his master asks him if he isn't a mere mercenary himself, and since the mercenary said they were dragon descendants, he feels that the Naga labyrinth, which is a small labyrinth, will be a walk on a cake for them to defeat. He says he will see if the mercenary is as skilled as they have claimed to be, and when they fight the war against the Naga labyrinth, he will reach his conclusion about them. As he talks, he smells a very sweet scent. As a result of the small fight that the Nagas have fought, they have gotten used to combat, although, to a small level, their first opponent was too weak, so they couldn't get any experience points for winning the fight. But as a result of that win, it increases Kim's charisma, and his level of expectation also increased in a small level as he no longer thinks his labyrinth is weak. As a reward for leading his members in that fight, he receives a title called the Beginner Commander. His troop is also happy for him. Dominic, who is glad about their improvement, goes to meet him to congratulate him, but she feels he has something on his mind, so she asks him if there is something wrong. He tells her there are many things wrong, and it is not just a thing. He feels like he isn't a good leader, and he reminds her that the owner's room got broken during the war. If it wasn't for the fact that the enemies were interested in anything except the core, they could have killed the workers, the soldiers, the warriors, or even Dominic. He is glad that the weak rats were their first opponent, as he feels if they had a better opponent as their first opponent, they would have died. As long as the dungeon remains that risky, the probability that they will get wiped off without achieving anything is high. Dominic is shocked at his concern. She couldn't have imagined that she would have a master who would be so concerned about them, even more than he is concerned about the core. Kim doesn't even listen to any of her naggings, as what is on his mind is much more than that. He feels there is a need for them to increase their defense, as that is the only way they can survive. He calls the Nagas and he addresses them. He tells them to store the happiness of their first win in their heart, and the dungeon isn't a place for the weak. He tells them that at Jaiser, the weak die and the strong win, so they have no time to start celebrating the defeat of a weak clan, and they can't get drunk in their triumph over the rats. Instead, the war has shown him their loophole, and what they have to do now is to get stronger. However, a new chapter in their history has been opened, and the storage will become a treasury, and the territory will become processions, and their labyrinth will be a fortress. It can't be done by any other person than them, so the fortress will be made with their hands, and if they can do it successfully, they will be known as legends. Several days after their first battle with the rats, the remains of the rats are eaten as food by the Nagas, and the other parts are stored in their storage. Since the Nagas are satisfied, it reduces the rate at which Kim will pay for maintenance. Kim sends some of his workers into the cave for mining construction, and the team consists of 3 workers. They also send some workers to harvest down gems from the lodes and plants, and since Kim knows how risky they can be, he sends them with an escort. He wishes to make a nearby patrol so he can defeat enemies before they get to their labyrinth, and also a hunting ground. But he doesn't have units to put in charge of them, and if he wants to summon, he will need down gems, and he doesn't have enough down gems to use for the summoning. As he thinks of what to do, one of his workers brings a horn of a horned rat. He knows how much the horned rat hides, so he knows it would have been difficult for the worker to find the horn, so he appreciates the worker for his hard work. The worker tells him he found it coincidentally on his way. Kim takes the horn and takes it to the merchant. He asks the merchant if the horn sells in the market, and the merchant tells him he can consider anything from the ground sellable. He even says the horns can be used to make things like velvet hunters. The merchant asks him if he has any down gem, but he tells him he doesn't have any. The merchant assumes he is also having trouble getting down gems just like the other explorers, and since that is all Kim has that day, he will send the money for the horns to Kim's account. Kim doesn't leave his office, and he wonders why Kim is still waiting. He asks Kim if he needs anything, and Kim reluctantly asks about the offer for Hell Spider that the merchant had told him about before. He asks the merchant if there is still space, and the merchant asks him why he wants to know. He thinks Kim is upset after missing his chance to make more money, but Kim explains that the only reason he is asking is that he needs down gems. The merchant asks him what he wants to use down gems on, but since he can't tell the merchant that he is a labyrinth master, he lies to the merchant that he needs the gem because he wants to sell it. The merchant concludes he needs money and reminds him about how he broke his table the last time they met, all because he didn't want the offer, but now he wants the same offer that he has rejected. He says that money is really everything. If only he knows that Kim doesn't have any intention to sell the gem he gets. The merchant reluctantly gives him the information he needs about the Hell Spider. He tells him the first advanced team has left, and if he still wants to go, he has to join the main squad going to the second. Before he concludes his statement, he remembers that he has to be sure that Kim has the required skills to do the job, so he asks Kim what his level is. Instead of answering him, Kim inquires if he didn't find his level when he was doing a background check on his family. The merchant wonders how long Kim will get angry at him because he did a background check. Kim eventually answers him, and he tells him he doesn't know what his level is, but he was born and raised on floor 12 of the dungeon. Floor 12 is one of the high floors in the dungeon, and he assumes Kim is lying about the floor he was raised. He tells Kim not to joke with things like that, but Kim tells him that before he came to the ground, he was living in the labyrinth of one of the Geyser dungeon dukes. There is just one explanation for all the words he has been saying, and if he is right, it means he is indeed Korea's highest level dungeon baby. Kim doesn't feel there is anything important about his level. In fact, he has never cared to know his level, so he wonders why the merchant is making such a big deal about his level. The merchant realizes he is ignorant about a lot of things, and he doesn't know how the dungeon works. He asks him if he knows the strength of a dungeon baby, but Kim replies in negation, saying he hasn't been to the dungeon since he came out of the dungeon as a child. He doesn't know anything about that world, and neither does he know about the situation inside the dungeon. The merchant eventually realizes that is the reason he kept a clause in their agreement is that the merchant must give him information about the dungeon. Since he is ignorant about all he is meant to know, the merchant decides to explain them to him in a simple manner. He tells him that every dungeon baby has a level, and the way to find out your level is actually very simple. It's just the floor on which the baby is born. So since he is born on floor 12, he is on level 12, which means he is one of the babies from the deeper floors. Babies born on floors 1 to 3 are usually a bit stronger than a normal adult male. As a result, they are always on the exploration team instead of the assault team, while babies born on floors 4 to 6 are the babies of medium floors, so they make up most part of the assault team. Their strength is greater than the higher floor babies, and it is similar to that of the superheroes in super soldier movies or in superhero movies. He continues his explanation and tells Kim that floors 7 to 9 are known as the lower floor, and any floor lower than that is no longer a floor but, instead, a place for monsters. Babies born on floors 7 to 9 have obvious strengths that are open to everyone, but they are very few, so they know how important they are, and they get very cocky. Finally, the last part of the floors is the 10th floor and above. They are the floors humans couldn't reach during the war, and they are called the deeper floors. That explains why Kim was one of the last children to be rescued from the dungeon, and that's because the floor he is coming from is too high. The merchant tells him that compared to the other floors, there is not much to explain about the deeper floor, and the babies from that part of the dungeon are few in the world. Plus, if he is really from that part, there will be not much to explain to him. The rule is the deeper the floor, the more people have special powers in strength, speed, and other places. He wonders if Kim has special powers. He tries to give him examples of what special powers mean and asks if he can breathe fire, or show laser eyes and all. Kim gets angry at that question. He tells the merchant that with his current power and without a weapon, all he needs to kill the merchant is his bare hand. He says the entirety of the merchant's body are weak points, and he can use him to experiment with his strength. Knowing how strong he is, the merchant asks him to stop. Kim returns to the exact reason he came and asks if there is still space in the troop going for the Hell Spider. The merchant tells him that since he is level 12, even if there is no space for him, they will create a space. He begs the merchant to lower his level before he tells the troop, but the merchant tells him that if he lowers his level, his money will get lowered. He won't get as much as he should, but he tells the merchant that he is fine with that. He tells Kim that he will send the schedule of the trip and all he needs to him through text, and he will also allow Kim to borrow equipment from the storage. Kim appreciates him for his kind gesture, but before Kim leaves, the merchant remembers that he has to forge Kim's dungeon baby's card, so he asks Kim for his ID card and picture, but Kim doesn't know what an ID card is. Meanwhile, at the dungeon, Dominic tries to encourage her workers to keep up the good work. She reminds them that if they can work to protect the dungeon, they will be remembered as legends. Kim comes in about the same time and asks her what she is doing. He asks her for the report of what they have been doing in his absence, and she tells him the mining harvest in the cave is going on well. She says they have harvested a small amount of down gem from the lode and plants, and they have also gotten another small amount from beast subjugation. He asks her for the gems they have gotten, and she gives them to him. He collects them and immediately converts them to labyrinth energy. He decides to use the energy to summon. Dominic is shocked that the first thing he thought of was to invest in the labyrinth, and he tells her it's because he doesn't need the money. He tells her he will be absent from the dungeon for about a week, and when she asks why, he tells her that it is because he needs to follow a team for Hell Spider subjugation, and he can't open the portal in front of his comrades. He tells her the gems they are harvesting are slow, but Hell Spiders carry down gems, so it will be faster if he uses those gems to upgrade the labyrinth. He summons a Naga archer and commands him to keep the gate and preserve the workers. He shows her that all the gems they have gathered for days have finished, so he needs to do better. They still have 2 energy for their upgrade, so he asks her if she thinks the portal he passes to the labyrinth can be adjusted. And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.